Henry Kissinger famously said, you control oil, you control food, you control everybody. Well, how do you control those things? Through the currency. The currency is the lever of power. And so then I started realizing that the ultimate terror and tyranny, the ultimate control vehicle is central bank digital currency. Here's the term of the month. It's decentralization. I found a definition here at this place called Technopedia, which is kind of like a Investopedia for technology. And it says that decentralization is the transfer of power, authority, control, decision making away from centralized entities to a larger distributed network. And decentralized networks aim to create a trustless system. In other words, where you don't have to trust the counterparty because trust is baked into the system. So if you understand anything about blockchain, it's self-validating. You don't have to trust the counterparty because the system has a high deal of decentralization in it. So nobody can control it, so nobody can manipulate it. It's a very, very important concept. A trustless system is fostered by distributing decision-making and resources among numerous participants, averting the risk of a small number of bad actors taking control of the network. All right. And so the concept of decentralization is a complex and multifaceted one. It comes in various forms. There can be political decentralization. There can be administrative decentralization. There can be fiscal decentralization and economic decentralization. So the reason I brought it up on the panel is because I was trying to understand what it is that explains all these really unusual things that are happening. And my late wife used to love to watch the show House. And it was all about this doctor that would look at all these crazy symptoms. It didn't appear to be related to anything, and no simple answer explained what was going on. It was like complex. And he'd troubleshoot it and figure it out. And so I was kind of having one of those house moments, and I woke up in the middle of the night about 2, 3 weeks ago, and I'm thinking about being on this panel with all these super smart people and trying to figure out what do I add to the conversation and what could I really bring. And I was trying to figure out the context. I knew Bitcoin would be a topic. I'm thinking about Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, so we just had this blowout election that surprised a lot of people. I'm watching the role of new media. And of course, I've been in new media for 20 years, and we were just like a couple guys with microphones. All of a sudden, all of us couple guys with microphones are a big army of information warriors out there, and we're bigger and more powerful than mainstream media. And that power was illustrated as you saw these presidential candidates desperately trying to get onto podcasts, even more so than they were trying to get onto mainstream TV. And it was a difference maker. Joe Rogan made a difference in this election. You may like it or not like it. It doesn't matter. It's a fact. It happened. So new media. So that's a very decentralized media. And then I thought about gold. And I got gold right, but really for the wrong reason. I just thought gold was about the falling currency. And yet, when I really thought about it, I realized as I've studied it more that the central banks have been accumulating gold for the purpose of breaking free from dollar hegemony or centralized control of the dollar. That's what the rise of the BRICS is. If you're a regular member, you know I've been following BRICS for a number of years, and I almost always report on it in Investor Mentoring Club because I think it's really important people pay attention to it because it's a mega trend. But then I really started thinking about this mega trend. I thought, it's really bigger than that. Finally, I got it. Because if you really think about it, all of human society is organized around economic systems. Even if you're just a guy on a desert island, you wake up and there's production, there's consumption, and you organize your life about producing. You got to go fish, hunt, harvest if you want to eat. Nobody comes along and gives you universal basic coconuts. Nobody comes along and gives you health care just because you have something you need, right? You are responsible for yourself. And then all of human society is just expanding on that basic concept from the guy on the desert island to a family to a tribe where you have a division of labor to a small town to a big city to a state to a nation to a collection of nations that form an economic alliance. And that's what we're seeing in the world. And Brexit and Nigel Farage now, 2 million votes, people trying to push back on the centralized control. And so when you control the money, you control everything. Henry Kissinger famously said, you control oil, you control food, you control everybody. Well, how do you control those things? Through the currency. The currency is the lever of power. And so then I started realizing that the ultimate terror and tyranny, the ultimate control vehicle is central bank digital currency. What's the antithesis of that? Decentralized digital currency. What is that? Bitcoin. Ding, 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 ding. All of a sudden, I kind of got it. I was like, wow, okay, I think I understand. I get Bitcoin now. About $90,000 too late, but I get it. And now you start seeing the Trump administration talking about maybe even making Bitcoin a strategic reserve. I think there's a lot more to that story than just, oh, he's just trying to suck up to a bunch of Bitcoiners and get votes. I think he's up to something, and I'll cover that when I get to Trumponomics. So all of this stuff kind of goes together into a narrative that I want to share and have you really thinking about. Because if I'm correct, and I'm not saying I am, but if I'm correct, then anything in this economy that is being driven by this mega trend of decentralization is probably going to have the wind at its back. It's almost as like the baby boomer demographic. Anybody that invested in the baby boomer demographic from the time those kids were little until today, when they need health care, everything in between, it's just been this giant pig in the python that works its way through the economy. And everywhere it goes, it's big. And so the millennial generation is going to be like that. And part of it is their adoption of technology and the way they think. They don't think like boomers. They're different. And so I'm spending more time hanging out with younger people, trying to really understand the way they look at the world. But I do think this move of decentralization is a thing. And so that's kind of my thesis. And I laid it out there, and I had a really interesting experience. I had a man named James Turk, who Dana Samuelson knows, big name in the gold business, came up to me Saturday night at the closing reception and, said, "Are you Russell Gray?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I just want you to know that what you shared on the panel, you were the only person up there that really understood what's going on." And I thought, okay, that's, interesting from some schmo. And then he pulls out his name tag and shows me he's James Turk. And I'm like, wow, that's high praise coming from you, Mr. Turk. So that really emboldened me a little bit to share with you because I think I might be onto something. Again, I'm not saying I am, but I want you to contemplate it as you look at the events in the world. I really do think decentralization is going to be a thing.